yesterday, Dr. Doyin Odebowale was taking us through some history, and it was part of attempts to answer whether we should do regional government or we should just just split the country up. So it was giving us some background to why it will make the choice he's making between going for regional government or splitting up the country. Dr. Odebowale, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Shegun. Thank you.
And welcome everybody as you are joining. So just continue to listen. And if you have a comment or anything to say, just share. Or if you have questions for Dr. Odebowale. So yesterday, sir, we had to stop at, and I want to remember where we stopped. I think you mentioned Kiriji War. And
yes,
us...
I stopped at the time we had, Nigeria as a political reality, and maybe I just take off from there so as not to take you back.
Yes,
unnecessarily. Now, you see, why this becomes necessary is because of our children. Like I said, you see, why I engage in this. And why I speak to you anytime you want me to is because of the nature of this program. This is not unlike others where people, use for politics or for propaganda or what have you. I have found this, and I'm not trying to patronize you. I found this as a serious platform where at least people will listen, and they can, my children are following too, and my former students, because they have been getting a positive feedback from most of them. From them. So I'm encouraged to say that's why we must take it with all seriousness it deserves. So we don't even attempt to distort facts to score any cheap point, because we don't know. So we should disabuse our minds from the fact that maybe this one speaks because it's like this. No. Facts as they are, verifiable facts. So I'll quickly take us back to 1897 when this woman, Flora Shaw, the girlfriend to Lord Lugard, saw that, look, the presence of the British colonialists, had become so noticeable that nobody could deny. While they were pretending to be coming as missionaries, as this, as that, it had gotten to a stage where the crown, was no longer interested in pretending for any, any longer, especially after the Berlin Conference, after they had carved up the continent of Africa. So in 1897, the woman suggested, it was in the times of those times, of that period, suggested the name Nigeria, Niger area, the area of Niger. And this was how they brought into one political entity kingdoms, empires, nations, ethnic nationalities, tribes, without regard whatsoever to the way they were, their economies, because the ancient economies too, however simple, however rustic, they were able to sustain themselves. At this period, unemployment was zero unemployment. In these towns and villages, because of the way they arrange their lives. Social hierarchies, all of these, they arranged themselves in a way that they were able to at least feed themselves. They were able to satisfy these, demand for subsistence to stay alive. So they brought Nigeria, and as I said yesterday, 1900, the Northern Protectorate became, a political entity. Then the Southern Protectorate, and of course, by 1914, they brought us together as Nigeria. One political entity under the British Crown. They had introduced the indirect rule system up north, and that worked for them because of their system. Now they now attempted to do the same here. And I mentioned the introduction of the Clifford's Constitution of 1922, when they appointed. There was no elective post at that time. They appointed illiterate members of the society who are the elites then. And I try to explain also the composition of the local elites, especially in southern Nigeria. In northern Nigeria, of course, that derived directly from the emirate, the sultanate, then it percolated down the emirate. Then, of course, as we move to the Bonu Empire, the ancient Bonu Empire, you had the Kanem Bonu, the El Kanemi, you had all of these people like that. Then you move to the Benue region, of course, you had the Totiv, you have all of these, dominant, prominent and traditional rulers taking charge of their domains before the amalgamation. So the 1922 Constitution was not of general application, as I said yesterday. It did not apply to the whole of the country. It was severely limited. The northern part of the country was still administered largely directly by the ordinance of the colonial administration, which recognized the native authorities. That was how they were administered. Now, the Clifford's Constitution, they chose illiterates, then the local elites in the south. Because you see, we need to understand the composition, the character of the local elites, so that when we begin to apportion blames, when we begin to hinge our expectations on failed promises and unrealistic hopes, we should know where we stand. These local elites, the recaptives came from Sierra Leone. The recaptives were the ex-slaves saved by the British ship on the IC and brought back to Sierra Leone. They were the first beneficiaries of higher education at Fura Bay in Sierra Leone. Some of them also had technical knowledge. Then they were taught the English alphabets for the singular purpose of being able to read the Bible. They became catechists, they became lay readers and what have you. And they came back to Nigeria as the enemies of their own people. They also came with this air of arrogance, superiority, because they had now embraced the new culture, as against the one that sold their great grandfathers into slavery. Ajayi Crowther was a major member of that elitist group, and Ajayi Crowther happened to be the grandfather of Abat Macaulay. All of these Saro people came, they settled. Some also came from Brazil, the Yoruba slaves. The ex-slaves were taken to Brazil. Some of them found their way back to Nigeria, and they settled on Lagos Island. So you had Brazilian quarters on the island of Lagos. So when you have your Da Silva, your Blavo, your Pereira, your Pinheiro, all of these who are now forming Lagosians, you should please tell them that indigeneity is not found in the fact of being a recaptive. It is insulting. Bad as their situation was when their ancestors, their forefathers were taken away, we empathize with that. Of course, we were all victims, all of us. Even though we who were not physically evacuated became underlings, became slaves, even on our own land. We were not even allowed to work, to realize our potentials, to actualize our potentials. We were not allowed to do that. So our condition even became worse, much worse. The fact of the rural-urban drift started with this so-called amalgamation, because the economic base of each and every society, the basis for development, the basis for social interaction, was disrupted by the new socio-political reality. They disrupted this by the new socio-political reality. So it was either you aligned with the new power block or you are relegated. You could be a farmer, a successful farmer in your village. You could feed your families. You could exist very well. You were not carrying somebody's waste, human waste. You lived well in an environment that was neat, You ate straight from the, from the soil. Your ambition was simple. They disrupted that. So the new organs were the returning slaves and those who were able to make it to the church. And they established their own schools, a new system of education, a totally different way of,
Okay, we're back.
of education. So that you begin to measure literacy in terms of how proficient you are in the knowledge of this language of the colonialists. You were seen as urbane, as sophisticated, to the extent to which you are able to show that you could use cutlery, you could hug and kiss in the open. They were taught to discard everything about their ancestral past, including the ability to sustain a society. Production of food to start with. Talking about metallurgy, the production of implements, however crude. Our ancestors were able to manufacture some of these things with which they went to farm to work. They knew about geography. They knew about climate. They could not speak English. They knew about all of this. When to plant the yam, when to plant, what to plant, where to settle. And when you talk about the esoteric philosophy, because when ignorant people talk about being illiterate, Africa taught the West a lot that they distorted and they made their own. The esoteric philosophy, you talk about the Ifa corpus, for instance, ethics, social behavior. The very first lesson you are taught, contentment, not complacency. You are let into the secrets of our ancestors, the accounting system, the accounting principle, the 8 and 8, the Omodu, the Odu, 8, 8, 16. Then 16 times 16, you have 256. That goes into infinity. That is the basis of the computer that you and I are using now. Go and read the inaugural lecture of Professor Alonge of computer science. You read all of this in the binary system. You can't take this away from us and begin to tell us that our ancestors were illiterate. You can't begin to treat a people with such knowledge exhibited in the past, which worked for them, as illiterate because they cannot speak, they are unable to speak English, or they don't know your ways. They don't know your ways. You cannot. You cannot begin to now subject our laws to the so-called repugnancy test. That whatever you don't understand, you tell us that it is against your own natural justice, your equity and good conscience. And good conscience. Because you don't understand. You are opposed to polygamy, but you support homosexuality. What kind of attitude is that? Being civil, in quotes, does not mean that your head is correct. Yeah, being rustic does not mean that you are ignorant. Rusticity and civility. We need to understand this, the undergirding philosophy. For both. Why, for instance, is it possible for you, a king in your own village or in your own town, who had farmlands, who produced, who contributed to the economic activities, economic growth of your own immediate environment? You now suddenly became a non-entity, a nuisance in the city, a big farmer in the village, a gateman in the city, because the social structure now says that you cannot fit in because you don't speak English, you have not been to school, you have not studied classics, the foundation of Western thought. You are not a lawyer in their own way, whereas in the past you grew with the law. So that nobody will tell you that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You were not alienated from the system with which your life was regulated. You knew everything about it. So talking about development, development must necessarily be about the people. The people must be mobilized to participate actively in the economic activities of their areas. And that is what is lacking now. People talk about minimum wage. They talk about all of these things now without deep understanding of what they're saying. As if a human being should not eat. As if a human being should be reduced to your own idea of education. What is education? What is education? The Latin word educo means to rear, to nurture, to draw out, as to nurture animals. Educatus is the fourth principal part of that verb, which means he who has been properly nurtured. An educated person, in essence, is he or she who has been properly nurtured for the purpose of that particular society. It is a selfish thing. It is not about you wanting to go to the moon when you don't have the capacity to even feed yourself. You are not in a competition with anybody. You must survive first. So being
Conditioning
educated means that the society has built your capacity for its
or
own purpose.
conditioned you. Like you
Condition
conditioned
you
him.
to serve the society, to be useful. So no human being should be reduced to what we call minimum wage. No human being should feel so important as to get money that he or she does not even need, as to have what you cannot expend in 1,000 lifetimes. That was not us. That was not the basis of our existence. That was introduced. Individualism was used to replace communalism. I don't know why anybody is not willing to say this. Therefore, if any man be in Christ is a new creature, all things are passed away and everything has become new. That is the first fraud. But they tell you about salvation. It is individual, individualistic. You must be saved alone. They tell you about this. They take you away from the farmland. They ask you to begin to look onto one rate, one ghost. Somebody who will come and take your sins, or somebody who even died even before you were born. That is a lie. That is a lie. Go and read about the Jews. How could a Jew have died for me and a Jebu man? Somebody from Remo. It's a lie. He never loved me. He couldn't have. It's people who are still here are racist. They don't love anybody. They are wiping people off. And that will take people away from the sun. By the time these people came and introduced their Nigeria, they brought together kingdoms, empires, towns, villages, nations, and they discountenanced the fact of heterogeneity. The fact of heterogeneity. We were not homogeneous.
Which is why people are advocating that we should just retrace and let everybody go back.
No, and I'm saying that that is also simplistic. I'm not going to play to the gallery and say, let us dissolve Nigeria. Let us say, no, it will be problematic from what we have now. Certain things are irreversible. Not like what they say that the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. That is bunkum. That is bunkum. That is rubbish. You cannot seek to practice this type of federalism that New Zealand is practicing or Australia is practicing, using a unitary system because of their space, because of their of homogeneity. You want to practice that in Nigeria, multilingual, multicultural, in every respect. You have a particular place in Ondo State, for instance. I just got to know while I was there for 7 years that when you go to the Akoko division, you move from one village to another. You may not understand anything that anybody is saying as you move like that. And the Akoko, you move around and like that. So you cannot just corral people of different backgrounds together and not evolve a system that we take into account that fact of heterogeneity. It is fraudulent. You did it for your own purpose. And must we continue with it? The answer is no. So by the time they finished with their useless pre-force constitution that was even restricted to the South, agitation started from now the local elites, those who came from Sierra Leone, the captives, you know. So if anybody tells you, anybody bears any English name and he or she wants to show any arrogance, remind him or her that Baba now, you are a descendant of slaves. We sympathize with you, we empathize, but please don't now tell us that we who also had the misfortune of remaining here and becoming slaves even on our own land, that you should now take some priority over us. Stop that nonsense. It is not true. Then those who were sent abroad to go and study, they came back. They also became the masters. So at first, there was this competition between the local elites, the illiterates, and the literates in English way. You know, those who came from Sierra Leone, came from Brazil, on one hand, and those who left Nigeria to go and study abroad. They now came together. And by the time you found your national youth movement under the likes of H.O. Davis, Anabat Macaulay, Imbono Ojike, N.S. Ikoli, all of these people, you started to have a semblance of a national movement that precluded elite from the north. Those from the northern part never wanted to have anything to do with them because they viewed what they did with suspicion. For the simple reason that not many of them were educated in the Western way. But Arabic study, all of this, they were good. And they were able to extort obedience from their people. They oppressed their people. They oppressed their people. You know what happened in the north and nobody wants to talk about. We talk about one north, that is fraud. With Madam Fodio brought his trouble into Nigeria under the guise of spreading Islam. That is not true. He was looking for influence. He came from Futajalon, no land, nothing. Came from a place that was not fertile. He came here. Madam Fodio is jihad, 1804, Nakope. He came into Africa. Then the Hausa communities has now been subsumed. The identity of the average Hausa people has now been subsumed under their fraudulent, sultanate. And you don't want us to talk about, you want me to sit down and be talking about Sanusi and Bayero. How is that a problem to me? I'm more interested in how the Hausa communities will assert their independence. How they're going to reclaim their identity outside these fraudulent religious practices, Christianity and Islam. I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in whether Ganduje, that character you call Ganduje, or the new one, whether they want to set anywhere ablaze. Hausa Fulani is a taxonomic construct that is so fraudulent that anybody who is saying should not use. Anybody who is interested in freedom should stop using. Hausa Fulani is Fulani. You know, the Benin people are being killed every day. Nobody wants to come to their rescue because we are talking APC and PDP and this nonsense politics. That is it. So by the time we adopted, we fought to discard the 1922 Constitution, Sir Richard came, brought 1946. That was the time they attempted for the first time to introduce regionalism. But Richard was evidently biased. He suspected the local elites in the South because of their education and because of their access to even the colonial office. So he pandered to the North. So the agitation continued until Sir Mark Faxon was posted as Governor General of Nigeria, and he listened to the local elites. who were not really interested in the emancipation of their people, but they actually wanted to replace the colonialists to continue to live in their GRAs, in the government reservation areas and others. So as to create, because they are now the new elites, they eat with cutlery. Their children are now going abroad to study. So, and they are not like the bush people. Some of them are children of slaves. Some of them no identity again, the survivor of this law, of this world. All of these people who now claim their allegations, even over me, Remo person, they claim being negotiations over me when they took my ancestors' land, my ancestral land. Yeah. From Epe, Ikorodu, Imota, down to Ketu, down to Ikeja, Onigbongbo, Remo land. Tell me about Lagos State, fraud. So by the time they
Oh, you
started
told us the meaning of
regional
Ikeja
system,
the other day.
Ikorodu, Epe, joint
Epe joint
administration.
administration. That's the meaning of
Yes,
Ikeja.
two Remo villages fighting over boundary. The colonial administration took over and established a local authority, a joint authority. That's Ikeja. Onigbongbo too. Onigbongbo, where you call Maryland. All of these were under Western region. Mushin, Egba division, Egba people are the owners of Mushin. All your Okoba, Agege, all of these people, these are how can you call Agege Lagos? How can you call Mushin Lagos? How can you call all of these places where you call Alakuko? These are villages of the Egba people. So Macpherson brought the regional constitution and started the operation of the regional constitution in 1951. And that was what was used for the first election. When Nigerians were elected into the regions, the parliament, and the central parliament, of course, they still had the colonial administration. The Macpherson constitution was the first time. And that was how, you had the premier. You had those who contested as the premier. 51 to 54, northern region, you had Ahmadu Bello. Eastern region, you had Eyo Ita. That was the name I forgot the last time. Eyo Ita. Then western region, you had Obafemi Awolowo. It continued until 1954 because they found loopholes. Talking about representation, they wanted, the net to be expanded to capture more and more opportunists. These so-called nationalists you are talking about. Mind you, they had stolen money in national youth movement. They had accused Nnamdi Azikiwe of stealing money. National youth, he was accused of corruption, of stealing money. Then Nnamdi Azikiwe had supported Samuel Akisanya, who became Odemo of Ishara later, to stand for an elective election under national youth movement. Awolowo supported Ernest Ikoli. Ernest Ikoli won. But Zik wanted to support Odemo, and then Samuel Akisanya, who was a Zikist, who was a prominent member of his movement, as against the growing, Yoruba nationalism, spearheaded by the likes of Awolowo. Awolowo just forced himself into their consciousness, and he never let go until he died. So 1951 to 1953, 54, you had Awolowo, Premier West, Eyoita East, Ahmadu Bello North. Then by the time they went for election, Nnamdi Azikiwe wanted to contest with Awo in the Western region. He lost. Ahmadu Bello won. Of course, he held on to the North. Regardless of heterogeneity, regardless that you have the minorities, he imposed the will of the Fulani people, not Hausa, Fulani people, on even those who had nothing to do with their jihad. The areas they did not even conquer, this man now extended this obnoxious rule. You know, in the east, Eyo Ita, very decent man from what we read, CSP. But after Nnamdi Azikiwe lost in the west, he went to dislodge Eyo Ita, saying that he was from the minority. He dislodged him and became the premier of the eastern region. So yes, that was what happened. Find out. So, but when they operated the regional system of government, that was the time that they introduced this healthy rivalry among themselves. Healthy rivalry among themselves. But they still use the same Western paradigm. They did not address the issue of real emancipation of the people. They did not touch the issue of mobilizing the people with a view to collectivizing labor. So as to mobilize people and create wealth, real wealth. So the Western region started that. And I'm not saying because I'm on the West, but they copied a lot from the West too. Because the groundnut pyramids, you know, you had them in the North too. Even the East. From the coal, from the plantation, when you see cashew, when you go to Uturu in Abia State, the cashew plantation you still find, you find around. The trees you still find there were the ones that the regime of Michael Opara, the premier who became the premier of Eastern Region in 1960 till the coup of 1966, it was their plantation that you still find. So you see, they introduced this healthy rivalry. Awolowo said his priority was going to be education. In 1955, he started the Universal Basic Education, what they have now appropriated to become UBEC Act. 1955. And when they lampooned him, they campaigned against him. They said he was just trying to impress people, that there was no way he could fund it. They also used the fact of the illiteracy of the people against him, against the AG, the action group. They said he was going to take people's children away from the farms. They used it. The likes of Adegoke Adelabu Benkelemes, that people now eulogize. As brilliant as he was, as educated as he was a decadent politician. Read about all of these people. Don't let them deceive you, please. He was at Makbo, he campaigned vigorously against our Lord that he was going to take their children away from farm, but he did not go to any farmland. He earned about a double promotion twice when he was at Government College Ibadan. Nobody has come near his record. For a person who was that good, who could mount the rostrum academically, who could mount the rostrum to mislead his people, to remain as farm hands and not to go to school. That was the type of politics they played. It was not about the people. So they also use the fact of Awolowo's ethnicity as Ijebu. So they must not follow Ijebu, not the message. Read. It happened. 1955, by the time he started his free education, he did not discriminate against any region. Then he started his health program, where every province, every place had a dispensary at least. These people steal money now. They say they are doing health care delivery system. They are building this, they are building that. They collect money from World Bank and IMF. They collect in dollars. They are going to humanize people. They humanize Mahalu and all. This one you could see. These old buildings like cottage health dispensaries. Every part from Mushi to Amasoma to Wari to every part of the old Western region. Then people came. They started even changing their names into Yoruba. Or they pick English names to mask their identity because of the free education policy. And we are talking about how they were able to fund it. Then cocoa had been introduced into the West from Brazil. And it was performing very well. There was the cocoa marketing board under the colonial administration. And every region had its own money, had its own identity. I told you about the fact that each region had its own agent general, even before independence. You had your own representatives. There, apart from the colonial, ordinance, each region had its own constitution, had its own judiciary. The police was one, but each region was permitted to evolve a kind of policing. And this was the attitude that they took into independence. If you read the 1963 Republican Constitution, you will find a provision on local police. The police force was born, but there was a provision that each region shall legislate on how to secure its territories, and arms and ammunition. The provision for that, for the control of that, was concurrent. Check it, Google 1963 Republican Constitution, and see if I'm telling you a lie. It was concurrent. Arms and ammunition. Another part of finances. So by the time Awolowo started his 1955 Universal Basic Education, he was unpopular at first because of tax. He introduced poll tax, Owori. They were arresting people on the road. And all industries, real industries, they were working. Then he embarked on massive investments. Massive investments. He established the farm settlements at Fashola that they are selling now as a housing estate. I won't worry. Farm settlements. He started ranching Akunu and Auga and another place in Barapa. That ranches there, big ranches. They went as far as Argentina and Brazil to bring in bulls. Bulls. Big bulls that were made for breeding. And they were producing. They even attempted to establish a dairy farm where they got milk. Where they got milk. Find out, please, all these lies I'm telling you on here. Do you know what happened? Thank you. By the time the military took over, General Adebayo killed all the cows. He was just chopping all the cows for his own Ambe party. In fact, the grandparents that nobody touched, that had become so big, and the parent bull, they would come from Ibadan just because they want to pick. They would just, that's why they closed down the ranches. They ate everything. And the workers employed, because there was no control, no farm control, no expertise, nothing. They had now introduced all manner of qualifications under the military rule. They stole everything. The machines that Western region purchased were taken to the north. After they killed Euros, they disabled the place. Now the farm settlements, where the visionary leadership had conceived that will sustain food production, they are now carving up as housing estates. I'm not worried. These mad people are now carving the place up as housing estates. Does it not surprise you, for instance, that under this fraudulent system that we run, that we pretend to be democratic or to be federal, that every state has a commissioner for agric? And I will not be surprised if the FCT also has. Then you have the Federal Ministry of Agric. What are they doing? Distributing fertilizer, getting World Bank loan, talking about Fadama. So there are commissioners for agric, ministries of agric replicated in all the states. So what exactly have they been doing? Where are the farms? How can we quantify their intervention. If the system is working, they just collect money and share. They get people, they seize people's lands. They talk about committed acquisition, compulsory acquisition. They steal people's lands. They convert to their private use. This is what you find. Like Operation Food the Nation that Obasanjo started in 1978 and now became Obasanjo Farms Limited. And nobody is talking. So the regional system has been hard. The North also has its own advancement, developed at its own pace. The North copied the Western region in terms of scholarship for the city, the indigenous of the regions. And they awarded these scholarships to those who needed them, not the children of politicians who would go to the UK or the US and be taking cocaine. They gave these scholarships to those who needed them. Western region scholarship was such that our own people were sent abroad to study medicine, to study engineering, to study architecture, to study mathematics, and they came back because it was not profitable to come back. You will be received like kings, like queens. You were celebrated. They came back to work. Our engineers supervised road construction. We had the Public Works Department, PWD. They supervised even the foreign contractors, Taylor Woodrow. The indigenous ones joined them, but our local engineers, our civil servants, public servants who are engineers, supervised them. They supervised them. You talk about our judiciary. Each region had its constitution. Each region had its constitution. It's not that you have just one constitution and everybody will now be talking about provision, clinical immunity, all of these fraudulent provisions that the elites have in the constitution that is used to protect their privileges. Each region had its own constitution, regional constitution, so that what you now have as a Supreme Court was not embodied with unnecessary cases. Cases on customary issues, chieftaincy, even some cases on land did not go to the Supreme Court as you now have. We had land cases going to the Supreme Court. We had, but very few cases, matrimonial causes going as far as Supreme Court. So that if you are filing any matter in Supreme Court now, you may be given 2038 as the date when all of you will have died. Your witnesses will have died, and conveyancing law. Western region started in 1959 to depart from the received English law with the limiting date as 1900. Western region started its own in 1959. Attempted to evolve its own system. So I talk about West because I am here. I'm biased. The West, because we have lost so much in the Southwest. We have lost so much. Our people are not made to think properly again. They are made to think that unless they go to pray on one mountain, that nothing is going to happen. When the answer to this, only indolent people went to be praying while others were working. Nobody took them seriously. I was a young boy when Jeso Ingbo started his madness. Odumosu, Jeso Ingbo. Out of Ingbo, where I was born, Developmental East. Developmental East. Agwegba. Jeso Ingbo, all these charlatans who started, you had them all around. Nobody took them seriously because everybody was busy. The government engaged them. We had the wireless radio service, rediffusion. And what was this service meant for? Agric extension was the major, apart from the mobilization for politics that the action group used them for. Agric extension. They will bring our local musicians, Victor Olaiya, Hubert Ogunde, all of it to sing Ike Dairo. After that, then the agric expert will come and say, hey, Baba Kini, Shotunsun, once on in local dialects, Ijebu dialect, Ijeshak dialect, Ekiti, all Awori, all of this to tell you about when to go to plant, how to plant, how not to apply fertilizers on what you are planting, how to, all agric extension services, free on radio programs, rediffusion, wireless radio. Then the need for mass communication brought the idea of the first television station in the country, 1950, and on the continent of Africa, 1959, before France. Before France, as beautiful as Paris was, there was no television in the whole of Paris before Western region. WNTV and WNBC that Obasanjo turned to NTA and FRCN. Obasanjo, yes. The animal called man. Yes.
Okay, so in a nutshell, sir, you have portrayed so much about the government at the time of the regional system. Are you
Yes.
therefore saying that it was all beautiful
No,
when we
no, no, no.
practice it?
No. I mean, if it had been all beautiful, no, there wouldn't have been any need for the crisis in the Western region, the old defunct Western region.
Okay.
Because as early as 1962, the crisis started, contrived, of course, for politics. Awolowo had been detained, had been placed on house arrest, and was eventually jailed for 10 years for treasonable felony. He was accused of plotting to overthrow the federal government of Balewa. Nnamdi Azikiwe was the president and commander-in-chief. So when people say, "Oh, Nnamdi Azikiwe was the nominal president, he didn't have power," I think they should just stick that up their asses. He was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He was the visitor to the University of Ibadan. He was the visitor to University of Lagos and to all federal institutions, including the NDA that had just been established. He was the visitor, so he wielded immense power, authority, and he used it for his own people. So let nobody come out to begin to deceive people that they never know they had the power through Nnamdi Azikiwe, 1960 to 1966. Yeah, then Nrosi, 1966 to 1966. January to July 29. January 17, because January 15 was the coup. Then he took over the 2 days after. January 17 to July 29, 1966. Nnamdi Azikiwe, October 1, 1960 to January 15, or if I'm correct, I should say January 16th, 1966, because it was Nwafo Orizu, the then Senate president, who handed over to Nrosi on the 17th of this, because there was no need for Nrosi to have dissolved the parliament when he said he didn't participate in the coup. There was no need for him to have dissolved the parliament. It was Nwafo Orizu and Keo Humbadiwe who handed over to Nrosi. That was part of what, fueled the suspicion against the people of the East. No, but before I move into it, let me just follow this systematically. During the time of the regional system of government, they played their politics. Say, oh, it was not all Eldorado. Yeah, they played their politics. And as you know, I told you in 1960 we operated the Independence Constitution from 1960 to 1963. The crisis of the Western region, the crisis in the West, in the defunct Western region, prompted the parliament to quickly adopt the Republican Constitution of 1963. And the reason was not far-fetched. To weaken the Western region, it was generally agreed that each region shall have the legitimate right to create new territories. Go and check, even the go and check the independent constitution, then go and check what became of the 1963 constitution. And they could create, there was a provision for creation of more regions. The North, as the colonialists bequeathed to us, was very big, and it was deliberately so that at all times they will be the ones dominating in terms of population, in terms of all of this. But if you pick, you say Hausa Fulani, fraudulent. If you pick the population of just Fulani alone, they are in the minority. Even now, they are still in the minority in the country. Or you say Hausa Fulani, you now put them, even you put people of Benue, you put the Berom, you put all of these people together, you put the Kanuri, you put that, you call them people of Adamawa who have nothing to do with them, they don't share the same ancestry, you bring them under one umbrella. So 1963, they created the Midwest from the Western region. Nnamdi Azikiwe supported them actively to weaken our law and the Western region. But they did not create any region in the Eastern region, where you had the minorities who complained bitterly of domination by the Igbos. I'm sorry, I have to say this. My first woman is Igbo, and we are going to be friends till death. But let me say it. We are one family, but let us say the truth. By the time they are appointing, they are electing a new premier for Midwest region, it was Dennis Osadebe, and it was speaking, Anioma person who was appointed from where they carved out of Western region. They stopped talking about creation of more regions in the East and in the North. Then, because Adegbero had been chosen as the new premier when they said Akitola must resign because he had lost confidence. The parliamentary system was that every member of the parliament was elected, and there was collective responsibility. Once they pass a vote of no confidence in you, you must resign. You must resign. And the governor of the Western region then was the Ooni of Ife, Sir Adesoji Aderemi. The governor had accepted. It had been at the national level, the president must accept. The governor had accepted and had advised Adegbero to form his government, to assume leadership. Then Akitola Taku. And that was the genesis of the crisis. The crisis was on in the Western region. It was after that they brought up this issue of treasonable felony. Then after that, they had filed a case at the Privy Council. The Privy Council was the highest court in Nigeria. Even after our independence, the Queen still remained the head of state, as she's still as he now. King Charles is the head of state of Canada till date. Was still the head of state despite our independence, the nominal independence in 1960. So the 1963 Constitution quickly removed the Queen then as the head of state, and now say, from then on, the title of Governor General will now change to President. Zik was still the same office holder. He was still the same office holder. So the Privy Council stopped being the highest court in the land. Then the Supreme Court of Nigeria, which was the Federal Supreme Court before, now became the apex court by virtue of the 1963 Constitution, drawn by the representatives of the people of Nigeria, either rightly or wrongly. That was the Constitution. The very first one, the independent constitution was given to them by the departing colonialists. The 1963 Republican Constitution was the first autochthonous document that Nigerians drew themselves. Of course, politics came in. You know, if that coup had not occurred, if the coup had not occurred, Nigeria, they would have made their mistakes. The Western region was, boiling, especially after the 1965 general elections that Akitola allegedly rigged, and people felt that they were oppressed. And then the wet here started. The wet here, the Western region was ungovernable at the time. The problem between the AG and the new party that Akitola had gone to form, the NNDP, the New Nigerian Democratic Party that he had gone to form, they were guys.
So the politics are part now. The politics
yes.
that played a part now. We are just looking at the system of government and the benefits so far. If you compare now that we have a federal system of government versus the time we had the regional system of government, which one would you say has benefited the people more? And
the regional, the region, and I'll tell you, now it was quick, decision making was quick, engagements between and among politicians of opposing political cleavages, engagements were so robust because, like I said before at a previous interview, that all those who were in the parliament were elected. And it was from these people that the cabinet will be formed, that the ministers will be chosen.
Yes.
And the opposition will also choose a shadow government, a shadow cabinet. For a minister of health in government, a shadow minister of health will be in the opposition, and so on and so forth. So for whatever you are bringing as a proposal, as a bill to the parliament, it was thoroughly debated. The duty of the opposition was to what? To pick holes in whatever the ruling party was bringing, with a view to presenting themselves as better options. It was quick. Then it was less expensive because nobody earned salaries on a full-time basis. Nobody earned money as obscene as what is happening now. No public servant did that. I told you also that I was privileged when we were packing. Professor Thompson was returning to Cambridge in 1995. We were packing his things, then I chanced on his payslip. I'm not happy that while UI was disturbing me and I was packing, I misplaced it. Maybe I'll still find it in one of my files. 1965, the salary of Professor L.A. Thompson of Classics Department, University of Ibadan, was the same as the salary of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the Prime Minister of Nigeria. The only difference was found in the allowances, the wardrobe allowances, entertainment allowances. Balewa paid for the food he ate in government house. It was when the military came and the likes of Adeyinka Adebayo started doing Owambe, started doing parties, started cleaning our cows, eating our cows like that. Yes. Go and read The Man Died of Wole Soyinka and see how one journalist called Shuemimo was killed. Yeah. He was brutalized by soldiers because he had once reported that they flew Moi Moi from Nigeria to London for a weekend party. Yeah, they flew Moi Moi, yes, now. While Adeyinka Adebayo was the military governor of Western State. It happened. So by the time the guy came back and, the guy was amputated and he died. Yes, that was what happened.
Well, to an extent, you have done so much by helping us to look pre-Nigeria and post-Nigeria. At least you have taken us to the background of before Nigeria was we were formed forced together, and after we were
Yes.
forced together, the regional system of government that we practice, and now what we are doing. So people are saying, since you have also said, well, it's more expensive to operate what we operate now, and it's as if people are not even getting much from the federal system of government we're practicing.
Mm.
And there's a proposal, I mean, like maybe it's just a rumored one, that Nigeria may be returning to regional government. While in the middle of it, people are still debating that we should just slice the country up and let everybody return to whatever they used to be before Nigeria was formed. Now, if you weigh the two, you have taken us down history, went memory lane, pre-Nigeria, post-Nigeria, regional government, and now. If you want to trace back, which would you
I'll choose
vote
regional,
for?
and I'll choose the regional system. And I'm not saying this because of this. I wasn't born in the 50s. I was born in the mid 60s. And I tell you, from even the vestiges of, modernity, of
Yeah, the
yes,
pre-independence era.
of good governance that we still met when we started our primary school through secondary school. These vestiges of serious thinking will not make me to support this nonsense. I said in that time, at that time, parliamentary sitting was part-time. Nobody became a member of the parliament full-time, that you sit 4 times in a year and you earn 29 million naira. No, no. I'm telling you that, you had people, this man, was it Oshun Tokun? Oshun Tokun, the man who was the minister of housing under the Balewa government. He was the one who established the old Bodija housing estate, the first housing estate in Nigeria. They are destroying the place now. Because before, if you trained in Bodija, you will not, the drainage system was perfect. This man, Oshidoku, did not have a plot. They named the street after him. He did not allocate a plot to himself while he was the minister. Then after the coup, he went back to Christ School, Ado, to teach as a principal. He went back. He went back. Just for you to know that a school principal was not seen as inferior to a minister. Go and find out. Go and find out. So nobody went to the parliament who was not educated. Nobody. How would you? What will you say? What will you contribute? How? Nobody. They gave you other responsibilities. You had the Adedibu interview. He said because he was not educated, he was the one who supplied the bags of cement for the construction of Liberty Stadium, that Awolowo insisted that he was the one to be given when others were struggling with him. He said, Awolowo told them, look, Adedibu Okawe, they could be minister, he would be the one to handle this. And Awolowo maintained that. Busa Adelakun, it was later that Bola Ige made him commissioner. And he regretted it. All of them regretted it. It was under this new system during the Second Republic, when they had adopted the so-called presidential system with the 1979 Constitution. So the first one, I'm not saying that the first one was perfect. You continue to work at it. The American system is not perfect, but they don't pretend to be practicing federalism and be using just one system, pretending that the American society is homogeneous when it is not. In your constitution, and constitution, you have the provision for Sharia Court of Appeal. Then in your section 230, you have the provision that no state shall adopt any religion as a state religion. So which one are we taking? Which one?
Okay,
The one that
so
will
sir.
provide for Grand Cadi. Yes.
So
Yes, you have a Grand Cadi.
you are saying that as it were, if we return to regional
Yes.
to practice regional system of government, it will address a whole lot of issues we currently have.
In fact, it will address so much. It will address so much. And let me quickly bring in this, the issue of local government autonomy that even this current government is trying to, to bring to the fore. Local government autonomy. You talk about local government autonomy, you talk about allocation, you are not talking about generation. Is that not fraudulent? Is that not fraudulent? You take over the resources of these localities all over the country. And let me quickly disabuse the minds of those who think that it is only the Niger Delta alone that is blessed, that is rich, that can sustain itself. It's a lie. For so long, they've been mining Zamfara, they've been mining gold in Zamfara and other precious stones, destroying the ecology. They've been doing it, they are still doing it. In Ilesha, go there and see what Chinese are doing through some of your traditional rulers there. Mining gold. Go to a war and see what they have how they have destroyed the place through Ministry of Solid Minerals and what have you. And a minister just went to present $5 million as what he has added to the treasury just last week. Daily Alake went to present that. These are funny people. So you talk about local government autonomy, you talk about allocation, and you are not talking about resource control. You are fraudulent. In your own constitution, as imperfect as that fraudulent document is, the constitution tells you that the federating units are the federal government and the states. Even though Obasanjo brought in his fraudulent reforms in 1976, the local government reforms, upon which the subsequent constitutions, have been based, guaranteeing the establishment of local government, that is even a misnomer. Any government, any state government which is desirous of having 50 local governments should be free to do so for as long as you don't depend on federal allocation. If these local entities are viable, if you allow them to explore their resources, if you allow them to make use of their resources and they pay royalty to the center, nobody will create any local government indiscriminately. You talk about minimum wage. I told you before that at a time when they were suggesting 2.5 shillings, Western Region said it was going to pay 5, and it paid 5. But they said they had the resources. But now, through your fraudulent One Nigeria program, you now have a revenue mobilization and allocation nonsense, useless commission, where somebody will sit and be deciding on the salaries that public servants will earn across the country. Somebody who works in Lagos and another person who works in Jigawa. You create local governments. Kano will have 40 something, Jigawa will also have like 20 or 30 something because of allocation. And Lagos will have 20. Oyo State has 33 local governments. And the landmass of Oyo State is the whole of Southeast. The five states in the Southeast is one Oyo State. And somebody will now tell you.
Let me get that.
Yes. I said Oyo State, the whole of Southeast, the 5 states in the Southeast, Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Imo, and Enugu. When you bring them together, all of them together, one Oyo State.
It's just Oyo State.
One Oyo State. One Oyo State, my dear. One Oyo State. And they want to create funny people who call themselves senators. They have funny who call themselves senators. 15 of them in the Southeast collecting constituency allowance and all of this. They have countless number of House of Reps people. Niger State, one Niger State is 5 times Southeast. 5 times Southeast. So what are we talking about? So you now begin to talk about local government. They are guaranteed. So those who don't go to offices at all, they don't go at all. We now hand the same time, like commissioner in Jigawa, we hand the same time, commissioner in Lagos. Commissioner in Ekiti, we hand the same time as commissioner in Port Harcourt. These This is what your one Nigeria thing is bringing. Then you destroy
But
our own education too. We are unable to even admit our own students. We are unable to even decide on our curriculum. We are unable to decide on our curriculum. We have a useless commission you call the National University Commission that is now harmonizing, disciplines to teach the same thing. And ASU is keeping quiet. They talk about salary alone. 2009 agreement. They are not making any noise on what NUC is doing, even now, forcing them to teach the same thing. I don't understand all of these things. They all rush for accreditation now. They rush for accreditation. And you know what goes on when they do accreditation? Accreditation, you will tell NUC that you have library, you have all of this. They give you full accreditation. Then 6 months after, you want to go on strike. That those things are no longer present. And nobody has been sent to jail. No VC has been jailed. So before, we decided, the universities decided on the students to admit. We even decided on the nature of our education. We had technical education. Vocational training was functional in the Western region, for heaven's sake. Then those who did not pass the Cambridge exams direct, there was an opportunity of a modern school for them. Those who failed, they had the S75 certificate that they were issued, with which they went to trade centers. They became useful. Now, check your budget. Check any state budget. You see provisions for vocational education. They are just stealing this thing routinely. Where are these centers now? They will tell you one senator is a good man because he gives them Indomie. He buys Keke Marwa. He distributes all of these things. Is that empowerment? Is that how to build the capacity of your own children? Is that the way to build wealth, to create wealth? Is that the way? Prebendalism? The system allows it. A senator should legislate. I don't know your business about bridge, about building schools, constituency project. Only now, you know all of these things now, but people, when you talk like this, some mad people will come and be telling you about the Labour Party, about APC, about this, about that. I made an intervention on a friend's thread yesterday on the wall. One lunatic came and be telling me Peter Obi was talking about the fact that multinational companies, were leaving Nigeria. I just said that he does not lie in his mouth because he's a major importer of finished products. And when you bring in finished products, you are simply asking local industries to die. They can't compete with you now. Because more often than not, these finished products you bring in with drug money. Proceeds from narcotics. This lunatic now saying, oh, Tinubu too was dealing in drugs. Is that the issue? Does that remove the fact that you have destroyed Odebowale electrical industry in Southwest? Does that remove the fact that Oluwalope Motors is no longer in existence? Does it remove the fact that the Igbomina steel workers who depended on Nigeria and all of this place for steel have now been pushed out? That my people are now in penury because of your drug? Because of one Nigeria? Does it remove the fact that now most of our local markets are now losing identity?
So I hope you are not alleging that Peter Obi is involved in also drug dealing or not.
No, I've not said that. I've not said that. I'm saying that more. No, I've not said that. I can't be that irresponsible. I can't be that. No, the fact in the public domain as of today is that your president, the president of Nigeria today, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, at a time had an issue with the American government concerning certain money traced into his account as proceeds from narcotics, so heroin or whatever. About 400 and allegedly, yes, about 400 and $1,000. That is in the public domain. So nobody is saying anything new concerning that. But when you want to pray to the gallery because you are a Peter Obi, you just open your mouth. Anything happens to anybody, they kill the general in Abuja. then Nigeria is collapsing. They kill people in the southeast, you have not said anything. Hypocrite now. They kill people in the southeast now, and the soldiers killed were even Igbos. Nothing from you. They prevented your children from writing mathematics. Nothing from Obi now. So that is my drift, please. And I don't want people to personalize this. It's a very serious issue. It's whatever. Am I a spokesperson for Tinubu? I don't speak for him, but you won't force me to abuse him. But I mean, if my wife wants to follow him, voluntary killing now. So I'm not. I mean, you won't force me. You won't force words into my mouth to abuse him. I cannot abuse him.
I just wanted.
And the fact that I started under Akredolu, we now appear to have stopped me from talking about my country. You must be crazy. You must be crazy. Another mad person wanted me to talk about Ondo State. For heaven's sake, is that the solution? All I've been saying now, if I abuse Lucky, my ex-wife friend, if I abuse Lucky now, without change anything, if I gotten involved in their local politics, would that change my situation in Ogun State? I'm an indigenous of Ogun State, and that's a fact. Will I not appear as a hypocrite if I talk about the roads in Ondo and I live with the parallel state of my own state, Ogun State, where I live, where I see things, and I know that many people you see there are working disasters. They bring young, agile men, menacing-looking young men. They dump them at Ogereremo. They distribute them all about. They give them Okada to ride. Our people just collect ticket money from them. They call them any generation. These are sick people. You cannot be the house, and they will remove the gate and go and sell to one malam at Ogerito Gate. Nobody will arrest him. Is that not serious? Also, you want me to abuse Lucky? I won't abuse him now. I will not, Kokomi. If he abuses me, I'll be abusing him. We are inmates. I'll be abusing him. But it's not the issue. I can't be using my life to be doing this. Our children are watching. And I'm saying that these cowards should be courageous enough to confront these people based on what they present to the public. Dele Alake is telling me that he has contributed $5 million to the government purse. Now, I see that as some tokenistic hypocrisy. Yeah. We are talking about people destroying Elisha, talking about people destroying Sanfara, talking about banditry. Okay, you identified, okay, these people who are coming to mine illegally are the ones who are harming the bandits. How many of them have you arrested? How much have you gone into stopping this? Nobody can go to the farm. We are asking them to go back to the farm now. Now, go and plant cassava now. If the cows are not just asked to come and eat free cassava, the Chinese will wait for you until your cassava becomes mature, and they will now encourage the locals to go and steal your cassava to come and sell to them. Are these not existential problems? They are.
Okay, so Dr. Odebowale, lastly for today, and then because this topic it can never finish. But lastly for now, if Nigeria returns to regional government,
yes,
which of the regions do you think, your opinion, do you think will do well? I mean, based on facts available, which of them do you think will struggle? Which of them do you think may not like that we return to regional government? Because the idea of federal system is to ensure that those who are a little weak or disadvantaged can benefit from the union. So
no, I don't. No. A federal government, a regional government is still federal, and it can still serve that purpose. And that is why you have certain institutions of state, like the army, like the customs, like the police too. But we are insisting that if you run a federal system of government, the state should also have its own police. That is when you will be seen as not being ignorant. When you say you run a federal system, you cannot have a central police command. You will have one, but again, the state should also have, even the local government should have their constabularies that the region will legislate on. Yes,
Dr. Odebowale,
constabularies that the region will
let me be specific about
Mm.
revenue generation and control, resource
Yes,
control. If we go back to
yes.
regional government, in terms of revenue
All
generation,
the regions are viable if you go back to, because they will use their relative strength, areas of relative strength, to like the northern part, they produce food. In fact, the position now threatens national security. If the North decides not to bring their food to the South, you will starve with your English. Yoruba nation, you will starve. And if the regions are not permitted to even legislate on arms and ammunition and their movement into their territories, farmers will not be free to go to their farms. You still be arguing about open grazing and grazing routes. Zamfara has gold and other mineral resources that Zamfara can sponsor the rest of the country if the resources there are well managed. The middle belt, where you call the North Central now, can also stand on its own. The middle belt, the North Central. You cannot have a region which harbors iron ore, Alaja, Ajaokuta, Obajana with limestones, and you still be talking about poverty. You cannot have a region as blessed as the Southeast. The coal in the Southeast, as at the First Republic, was of better quality than the one in Lancashire in the UK. That's why they came. They didn't come because of our sunshine. I told you about the rubber plantation and the cashew plantation. Every region will sustain its own. Then, of course, achievements in the Western region, legendary. I don't want to recap. By the time they
okay, so
carved the Midwest, so no region we saw. As a matter of fact, they have been using it conventionally now. You have 6 geopolitical zones. I listened to what Chibode just said, that which state will be capital. We said that is too pedestrian. We're talking about capital. We're talking about which state you want to go back to Akure, you want to go back to Ekiti, you want to go back to Lagos. This is the way they mislead people. All these states are artificial. I just told you about the fraud called Lagos State now. The fraud, we started in 1967. They took so much from the Southwest. What you call Lagos Colony and Lagos Federal Capital Territory is different from Lagos State. It's different from Lagos State. I have an insurable interest in where you call Lagos State. Forget about the fact that my father left properties there. I'm saying that. Talking about indigeneity. Who says that in Western region that we must use Yoruba and we must use English to teach our children? Who says they must use English in the North? If they are comfortable with Arabic, why not? If they want to adopt Hausa, why not? Who says that in the Benue region that they must not use their own local language? Who
okay,
says
thank
so?
you so much, Dr. Odebowale. We need to really wrap up and come another time to continue, so that people will know where to find what. If it is too long, they will be lost to find any
In
point. But
the
yes,
labyrinth,
in the so like us to be breaking it. So at least for this particular episode, I'm so sure that you have been able to deal with the topic regional government and the advantages that are inherent in it. But lastly, I also want to say this general. I think I'm confident now that those who feel that if Nigeria goes back to regional government, it may affect them resource-wise. Dr. Odebowale just assured you that your region is sufficient. And those who believe that they are using the resources from their own region to handle welfare in other regions, and as such, they don't have sufficient. At least they are not satisfied that by the time they return to regional government, they will be self-sufficient again. Their resources will not be going elsewhere. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Odebowale. Do you want to have a parting word? just for this episode.
Yes, I thank you. I enjoy this program. I tell you that we must take it very seriously. As the son said, no region is poor. You cannot have that ABBA in a federation and be talking about Japan, be talking about all of these things. Ban importation and see what will happen. You know, so what they do there, but of course, you manufacture, shoes in ABBA, you put Italy there. It's a good shoes. You manufacture things, you put all of these things there. It is part of this crass, mercantilism that we have introduced into the system. So we have to, progressively discourage it. Buying and selling is good, but buying and selling cannot develop any place. It will degrade your environment. It will destroy your infrastructure. Buying and selling will destroy local industries. Especially when you bring in finished products that are not produced locally, that you have the capacity to produce. You ban Italian shoes, you see what will happen to the industry in Aba. They are talking Innocent Motors. I don't know, maybe they have shares there. It is not only Innocent Motors. You don't have me to be you can't ask me to go and buy Innocent Motors and you allow other importations to other regions. That is also so right. That is cute. Ban what we have the capacity to produce here and let us suffer it together. You can't pick one and leave another one. You won't bring fabrics here. You go to China to go and do adire against my people at Abeokuta. You bring in adire that these Chinese are bringing to destroy the local industry, the adire industry in Abeokuta. You are pushing them off business. And when they now go, you now turn their shops into spare parts. Shops. That is unacceptable. That it is akin to genocide. We will not allow it henceforth. So you cannot be going to China to bring in adire when we have the local capacity here to do our adire. It's like at a time we come in the southwest when we'll be going around and we'll be attacking you too. We take the nonsense away from your shop. You must buy from us. Then you don't enter our local markets. Where my mama will sell Ewedu now. You displace her, you push her away because you have cocaine money. You now go and meet one bastard who says he's a chairman of local government, like they are doing in one fruit market in Lagos. He said you want to build a modern market, a plaza, and you want to sell one for 70 million, 100 million. You are mad. People should challenge this nonsense. Every market in any locality should reflect indigeneity. If others are coming to sell, they must sell, but they cannot displace. Residential areas should go back as residential areas. Mercantilism does not develop any place. It encourages illicit trade, drug, robbery, and what have you. And I'm not speaking against my Ibokidre, but I'm speaking against a phenomenon that everybody is afraid to talk about. Everybody is afraid to talk about. You don't pauperize a place because the place has the misfortune of abandoning the so-called Federal Capital Territory before. They're not being receptive. You displace people from their markets. You send them away from their farmlands because you are Adeboye. You are praying to God, and over 40 years now, God has not provided food. Those who have been praying for no prosperity. It is only you and your son Adeleke and others who are prosperous. And those who steal money from banks, that they enter into plea bargaining with TFCC. These are the people we see. These are the people we see. You don't pay tax. You don't pay tax. Our father was known globally for rights. You now have an auditorium 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers. Displacing farmers. You are the cause of poverty, not one devil, not one angel. Not one angel. Not one angel. You destroy our own place. You went to Epewara to build your Christian village. Hotels where people go to pay. Forget about all of these things. You see, we have to confront these people. Stop swindling people, saying that they must bring their first salary of January, even if they are Mugun. We who are not Mugun should talk. Say you are anointed.
Dr.
Stop this nonsense.
I have to go for now. We will
Thank you.
continue some other time. Thank you, everybody who stayed through. And those who watch later, you can share the link so that people can also comment. We'll still read comments later, even though they were not live comments. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Odebowale, and thank you, everybody who